The opposition leader Tony Abbott, patience wearing thin yesterday as Guardian Australia journalist Bridie Jabour questioned him on how he got away with $9,000 worth of expenses wrongly claimed and paid back for his book tour. But the unfortunate speaker, former Speaker of the House Peter Slipper, did not get away with his $900 from a winery tour. He's now before court and his career, it seems, is in serious damage.
Look, this matter was fully dealt with last year. There's nothing further to add.
Well, he's facing charges and you just got to pay $9,000 back. How are those two situations different?
Well, as I said, this matter was fully dealt with by the Labor Minister last year, who said that the matter was closed. The matter was fully dealt with last year. As I said, it was an oversight in my office. It was fully dealt with last year. Fully dealt with last year. The Labor Minister at the time was perfectly satisfied that there had been nothing that was deliberately done wrong, and the matter was closed. I think I fully dealt with it. Time to move on.
There is a group of people out there who are not professional journalists. One of them is a former journalist, actually, at Fairfax Media. But this group of people, you would say that they're progressives, but they've been doing their own journalism, their own digging on Tony Abbott, and they say they're incredibly frustrated that the mainstream media hasn't been putting enough pressure on the opposition leader. And in the last week, they actually had quite a big breakthrough. Margot Kingston, she used to work for the Sydney Morning Herald. She was a political reporter. She, through an FOI request, is the one who found that $9,000 from Tony Abbott had been paid back.
And all of this comes in a climate, of course, where the polls have turned against Tony Abbott. He has a completely new dynamic with Kevin Rudd and seemingly not sure how to handle Kevin Rudd. So it does add to that picture of frustration and exposure on the coalition side of politics.
The two principal issues he's being attacked on from these groups on Twitter are, one, this battle-wrought thing, and the other, whether he knew about the plot to bring down Peter Slipper with James Ashby. You might recall in December, federal court judge he threw Ashby's claims out of court, dismissed them as an abusive process, and he actually said that Ashby had conspired with LNP candidate Mal Brough and others potentially within the LNP to bring this sexual harassment case against Slipper. Now, Abbott has strongly denied having anything to do with this, but there's this group online, another group like Battle Wrought, made up of many of the same people who operate under the hashtag Ashbygate. They've got their own website, ashbygate.com.au, and they are absolutely dogged about this issue, and they're trying to pin this to Abbott.
So we're seeing this grouping of non-traditional media, new media, using particularly Twitter, lining up against particularly Tony Abbott as he runs to an election.
Absolutely.
How much of a danger is it to him?
It's a danger for him if and when they get enough of a break that it will spill out into the mainstream media. It's much like the AWU affair, I think. When everyone starts to pick up on it, you remember that week when the whole sitting week in Parliament, it was, I think, the last sitting week of last year.
The issue gripped.
Correct. It was consumed, it consumed the media cycle, and that's what Margot achieved this week, certainly at least for 24 hours with this issue. So I think when it spills out, it creates the perception that Abbott has things to hide. He wants to present himself as this honest, open, I don't do corruption, that's the Labor Party, and this is not helpful to him, I don't think.
To close, Jonathan, how much does this tell us about how new media, Twitter perhaps particularly, but certainly new media, will play into the dynamics of the coming election compared with past elections, do you think?
I can tell you right now, a huge part, because journalists are now, it's a very easy thing to do as a journalist to be arrogant and to say, oh no, these people are just whack jobs, they're crazy, they're partisan, I'm just going to ignore them. Well, no, often they're actually really highly intelligent people who've done a lot more research than we have. Often they're people like Margot who have excellent pedigrees as journalists, and they're uncovering legitimate stuff. There is a lot of noise in there, but a lot of journalists are paying attention now to people on Twitter, and once it starts to pick up momentum, that just has this generating force which spills out onto the TV cameras And if they get a sufficient enough break, I could see it actually having a real effect.
Ironic, because many politicians have looked to social media and the like as the breakthrough, because they don't have to deal with the old media. It might also be the enemy.
Yes, indeed.